Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Oboe Speak. I'm your host, Dr. David See-zak. Hello. Today we're going to talk about sharpening stones, and our goal today is to flatten the stone. What we're going to be using today are Shapton ceramic stones. These stones are not like Japanese water stones where you have to soak them in water, and after you soak them in water, when you take your knife and sharpen the knife on the stone, what happens is the stone kind of wears away and you'll get this kind of powder, and the knife will wear down a little bit and it will help the knife cut into the stone. Ceramic stones, these Shapton ceramic stones, what they allow us to do is kind of have a middle ground where the stone cuts very quickly but wears down very slowly, so that we get the best of both worlds. We get the stone to break down and the grit to start to make a slurry. You can kind of see this gray, this grayness here. That's the stone breaking down and the steel kind of coming together and forming a slurry. And when it's wet, you'll kind of get this gray powdery kind of slurry. So what happens though is as we use the knife on the stone, a lot of times if we only use the knife and sharpen it in this area, what happens is this part dishes out. It starts to thin down and scoop down lower and lower, leaving the outer edges to be taller. And so you have this kind of smiling effect where the outer edges are taller than the inside of the stone. When that happens, your knife starts to warp and change and shift, and you lose the advantage of having a quick cutting, durable stone, because now the durability has gone down enough that it's no longer flat. Well, you might say, how the heck are we going to flatten those stones? I have the tools, and we're going to do that today. I'm going to start, today I have 5 stones. I'm going to start with a 120 grit. 120 grit would mean a rougher. If you had like 1 grit, you could think of it like sand. If you had 1 piece of sand, you might think of that as 1 grit. And if you had the particulate getting smaller and smaller per square millimeter, there might be more particulate at a finer and finer level. So 120 should be a little rougher. So what I'm going to do is take this stone and I'm going to level it on, well, not this cardboard box, it's what's inside this cardboard box. We are going to use surfacing compounds and a lapping plate. I probably should open this up so you can see it. I like the box in here. I normally keep the lapping plate inside there. Now this is a Shapton, I believe it's iron. It feels like iron. Iron lapping plate. It's got this nice cover. And what you're going to be surprised by potentially, if you've never seen one of these, is all the orange. You might say, oh, what's going on? There's rust on there. Spooky. The rust comes from just the raw steel, or the raw iron oxidizing. But what's going to happen is that's going to wipe away very quickly, because we're not going to place this stone on here and just assume that there's going to be material coming off. What we're going to use is different lapping powder grits. These lapping powders have the numbers associated with them that Shapton suggests. You can see this is they call it the Shapton surfacing compound. Sometimes they're sold out of certain grits, which is, that's challenging because we have a wide variety of stones. And so you can see here, this coarse compound says 120, 120, 220, 320. So I have a 120 and a 320 over here. So we're going to use this coarse compound. So we're going to use these later. The medium here is 1,000 to 2,000. The fine is 5,000 to 30,000. That's pretty fine. Maybe one day I'll buy one of those. It basically looks like a glass plate, a 30,000 grit stone. It's very, very fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, first let's splash a little water on here. What we're going to do is we're going to put a little water on here. Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention, if like earlier today I taught a reed making class and the students were sharpening and they had to go right to the next thing. And sometimes you don't want your hands, you can see my thumbnail has this kind of black sooty, like if you were digging in dirt and cleaned your hands, you'll often have that kind of black guck on there. So if you want to avoid that, you can use, these are vinyl disposable gloves. These are from the Great Value brand. Rather than, you can get latex, all these things. These ones are kind of nice because they just have a soft feel to them. They're not as stretchy as latex gloves, but they seem to do the trick when I was looking for some gloves. So, but you get whatever kind of gloves you want. I'm not going to use them at this moment, but I highly recommend if you want to keep your hands pretty clean, it's a good tool to have at your disposal. So we wetted down the stone. That's the first thing, or sorry, the lapping plate, the iron lapping plate. I'm going to remove the cap. And you can see this. It almost looks like, I don't know what that looks like, sparkles. But it's very gritty sparkle. Let me put some on my finger and kind of describe to you what it... Ooh, let me get this closer so you can see what's going on. Whoa! Here's your ASMR for the day. It looks finer than it feels. It feels like microscopic tiny pebbles. So I'm just going to pepper this in here. And I'm not going to put too much. This stuff ain't cheap, you know. But I'm going to put a little bit on there. We've got the water on there. And the one thing when I was doing this with my students earlier, sometimes if the water level inside the lapping plate goes too far down, the particulate will wear down into the grooves and won't come up back onto the lapping plate. The whole idea is that it's not the iron that's flattening and cleaning the stone into an even surface. Instead, it is the grit being on top of these little triangles going back down and cycling back up. The only way we can do that is if there's enough water on here that the water is slurrying around. Otherwise, everything gets caught in the bottom, kind of like if you had on a house like a gutter. You don't want the gutters to pull the water away. In this case, you want it to flood to the top. So we're going to prove whether or not we're actually doing anything. And oftentimes when I use sharpening stones and knives, I will use a Sharpie and I will Sharpie on the knife and show you what's happening, show the students, show myself to prove what's happening. But here we're going to use a pencil. Now I'm using a super cool carpenter's pencil. You can use any pencil to do this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a lattice work or some type of cross pattern on here. Because I want to see, does this all go away? Does this wear away quickly? This one's just for showing off. I don't think I need any more than just the cross pattern. So I'm going to take this, put it on here. You're going to hear some pretty gravelly sound. Remember, this is a rough grit. Now I'm going to take a look and see what's happened already. Not a lot. Up here you can see a little bit is taken off. And this stone I used in a recent video, and it was kind of acting funny. So I really want to make sure I start with the rough grit first, and you can see the rust is starting to go away a little bit. I'm going to turn the stone around to make sure I'm not putting pressure on the wrong side. I'm not just going fast. I want to make sure I'm being thorough and even along this plate. The idea is we want, oh, look at that. Well, we're getting some progress. Now, this is really interesting because you can see there's slight lines here or there where material hasn't come off as much. And on the outer edges, you can see there's a lot more white here. And this tracks with what we talked about before, where because I, just like you, will most likely use the middle of the stone most, the outer edges they have a lot more material. So we're grinding that down until this material then meets the center of the stone. So let's keep going. Sometimes I'll use the diagonal and go on this side. And what I like that I'm seeing, you can see these little bubbles. These bubbles to me tell me that the water is floating up to the top and it's kicking around. You can see these little bubbles forming here as it's going up. You can see this kind of slurry bubble. That to me tells me that the grit is moving around and coming back to the top of those little triangles. Now, I don't want to do any more than is required, but if we look up here, you can still see a little bit of that line up there. I want all of that line to go away. And if I go too fast, I might wear away that grit. I want this stone to be pretty rough, so I want to expose that grit. That looks a lot better. Just for good measure. First, I'm going to clean it off so you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. I mean, I think that's pretty good. And the stone is so much rougher than it was before. On the other side, when I was using it, I don't know if something happened where it doesn't feel as rough as it should. My assumption is that somehow either medium or fine compound got mixed in with the coarse. Last time I flattened my stones, I may have done the fine stones first. And even though I cleaned off the stone, I wonder if some of the fine particulate didn't get caught in there, because that's rough. I like it. But this side, it's way finer. It shouldn't be that way. This should be really rough. So before we proceed, normally I don't do this again, but for the old YouTubes and to make sure we're really doing this right, let's see how quickly this material comes off. Let's do this again. Oh, you can hear it's nowhere near as gravelly as it was before. That very well may be because the particulate is settled down into the flattening stone here. Oh, there's some of that grit. Well, it's starting to wear away pretty well up here. We still have a couple, like a line there, little line there. It's looking pretty good. It feels flat. The thing I like, it feels rough. A 120 grit stone should be extraordinarily rough. So I like that. I think this side, we're really knocking it out of the park here. We did a good job. Let's go to the other side and do the same thing. And like I said, I can feel, this feels smooth. Whew. It's sharpening my skin. I can feel it just grabbing at my skin. So I'm not going to do too much of that. And again, you can use mechanical pencil, any kind of pencil you want. Draw those little lattice work lines. And I may put more surfacing compound on there. Let's see how we do. Now that's interesting. This side looks so pale, and this side looks so dark. Now the pattern's gone. Like, that material is gone. But what I'm concerned about, like I said, is that this side was so almost polished, like it was buffed out. I'm going to put some more surfacing compound, not because I don't think the stone is flat, but I don't think the surface of the stone is as roughed up as it should be. So I think something happened last time it was level. And I'm being careful. I put a little pressure in the front, the back, the middle. I'm trying to keep my hand pretty flush. But if I needed to take more off the back, I could put a little more on the back, a little on the front, more on the center. It really depends on what you need to come off of the stone. Let's put a little water on there and see how it looks. It's looking a little paler. And the reason I'm looking for that is because, well, that's interesting. The way the stone on the side looks, it looks different. This top side looks a little whiter, and I wonder if there's either a difference in the batch or there was a different part. When I bought it was bought as one grit, but the way it's slabbed together, it almost looks like a separate grit or a separate stone. That's kind of funny. I've never seen any of them do that like that. I don't know, but I didn't notice that until now. But that's maybe why the color is different. You can see on the side where it's never really been sharpened before, but how this side looks a little bit more salt and pepper. This looks a little bit more like cookies and cream or something. It looks a little bit paler. So maybe I won't worry about that too much. But But let's do the lattice work one more time and we'll move on. I'm taking my nice sweet time with this so that we don't rush too fast. I want you to be able to take your time and see what's going on. So I drew the lattice work. We're going to see, let's see how many passes it takes. Let's just do 3 passes. Well, 3 times 2. That cleared up pretty quickly. We still have some marks up here and down there. Let's turn it around. And you can see the iron plate is complete, the rust is gone. You can see how the bare metal is now coming through. And it's funny because even though it looks here like it's just, there's nothing on there, if you feel these little triangles, you can feel the grit floating on top of it. And that's what we're looking for. I can't even see the lines anymore. Let's do it just one more time for good measure. And remember, the whole point of this is to keep the stones flat and even. So when we use our knife on the stones are not making an impression on the knife that is also uneven. We need an even edge, so we need an even stone. If one of those is broken, especially the stone, it will imprint that into the knife and you will have a sad knife. So let's just clean this off. And I think this stone is ready to get back into sharpening action. Hey, all right. I see no more pencils on there. The stones kind of have a different coloration on them here or there, but it's the way it should be. I should feel that roughness on there, and I think that this is now as it should be. I'm going to grab some paper towel here. Oops, excuse me, pardon me. Okay, you over there. Just going to kind of make sure that cleans up. Between stones, I will rinse the lapping plate off because we need to get the compounds out of the stone a little bit. And the water is definitely flush in here. You can see it kind of moving through, and the grit may have settled down. Now, so we may put some more on. Now we're going to move to the 320 grit stone. Now this stone was cutting great earlier, and you can see I've been using it because if we put a little water on here, what you can start to see is this kind of gray bluish slurry on here, and that's the metal, that's the stone breaking down. It's kind of like a clay-like, really smooth clay-like feeling. Now this stone, if I put my knife on it, I can feel the bump from this part up here not being used as much and this part here not being used as much. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll even sharpen my knife on the outer edge over here and this edge because I want to try to use this material because oftentimes I'm not sharpening my knife all the way to the end. Instead, I'm keeping the knife in that region. And again, I don't want that buildup to happen here. But invariably it does, and that's why we do this process of flattening our stones. So let's put our lattice work in there. Hooray, hooray. We're going to see how this does. We may need some more material on there, some more compound. Now, it's funny because even though there's not a lot of compound on here, the stone sounds smoother. I think we undervalue the sound of knife sharpening, the sound of our lapping plates. There's so much important information we can gain from that. And also that there's just no compound on here, so it's probably just iron on stone. Now you can start to hear it starting to grab some of that grit and pull it back into the stone. Oh, excuse me. And that's one thing I should mention. You want to be really careful that you don't knock the stones around because these are, it's ceramic. It is brittle. So if you crack it on the edge, you will nick the stone. So you have to be very careful. Now, this stone's very dark, but you can still see there's that X, there's that X. But on the outer edges, there's a light one right there, but the outer edges, the X is pretty gone. And I can see this real, let me see if I can get it in the camera here. That's better. You can see this kind of really deep scratches. That's the coarse compound powder grabbing at the stone right here, but not going over here yet because we're still lowering this level here. This area of the stone still is needing to go down before it can meet the middle. So I'm going to put a little bit more on here just to make sure this stone is really going fine. I don't want to waste compound, but I want to make sure I do this right. This is a really important step if you're going to use ceramic stones. Let's listen how gritty this is. Whoa, very nice. Very nice. Now that was well worth it. Now I can still see the lines. Ooh, let's see if you can see the lines too here. It's very subtle. There's a lot of gobbledygook in the way. There's a line. Let me see if I can. I'm going to draw the lines because I think it's kind of hard to see. But there are some very faint X's right in there. So we're going to keep going at it here for a minute. Or 10, 15 seconds. Look at all those bubbles. Bubble-tastic. And I should mention, I am wearing an apron because the splashing can really hit back at you. So in addition to gloves, you might want to wear even like a little kitchen fork. This one I got on Amazon. It's called the Ladle Fork apron. It's just like a cooking apron, but they work great to keep you from, like I have khaki pants on today, and I don't need to walk around with, dark splatters all over the place. It looks kind of goofy. Very nice. Very nice. That's very satisfying to feel. Now this one is nowhere near as rough as the last one, but I do want it to be rough. I want that cutting edge to be there. Even with the sunlight, you can see how much smoother everything is. You can see the lamp and the reflection of it, seeing the lamp. There's my pencil here, tracking the lamp. I'm going to do this one more time, just for good measure, especially now that we have that slurry gone away. If you have any questions about what I'm doing, why, how, where, if I'm doing something you think I should be doing differently, I love hearing about it. Let's chat about it. That was great. I'm really satisfied with that. This stone has been a really solid, good cutting stone. I got the 120 hoping that it would really cut, but the 320 seems to cut faster and better. It's been a more reliable product for me. I don't know why. I'm going to keep at the 120, but this 320 has been a really good cutting stone. Also, interestingly, this side with the coarse grit, very rough, good. Very smooth, less good. I want it to cut, so I'm happy that I'm returning this to a really gritty side. I'm not looking to polish the knife. I'm looking to cut steel off and grab it off. So this is great. So let's put the lattice work on here. I'm making a mess, but that's okay. We're sharpening, we're leveling a stone. We're not making a Fabergé egg over here. Or a reed, if you will. Now again, you can hear it not being so gritty sounding. So I'm going to put a little speed to try to pull up the grit from the base. Now you can hear it's a little grittier. Well, that side didn't need very much leveling at all. There's a slight, I see a slight line right there where I drew my finger. So I'm going to do that again. Maybe we can get away with not using any more of our coarse compound. For good measure, let's do this again. And if you're wondering, is it actually flat? Well, I guess the proof is right here. If you put these little pencil marks and all the pencil marks come off, it's flat to a certain extent. because otherwise the pencil marks won't come off. Wow, that was pretty fast. I almost want to finish the stone with those last passes to make sure I'm really doing a clean job on there. I'm satisfied with that. I think this is good. There's some scratching up here. That's kind of interesting. You can see these deep grooves. It'd be interesting to look at that under a microscope. I can feel those grooves. I'm going to see if those go away. I'm going to do this one more time and see if those go away. I don't necessarily want those on there. It's flat, but it's got cuts in it. I'm going to be very judicious. Now, they're still there, but I'll keep my eye on that. Let's clean this stone off. And you don't have to have one of these sharpening ponds. You could make your own, I guess. This is a Shapton sharpening pond. They are not cheap, but they're very nice. I do highly recommend them. Sometimes they're sold out online. I bought mine many years ago at the International Oboe Reed Society convention, the IDRS convention, and was very pleased with my purchase. And if you hear this plump, 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 I saw a knife sharpener on YouTube using this. I watched, as many videos as I could, trying to learn what other people do. This is a garden sprayer. I think I got this from classic Menards. And you just pump old El Pumpo here. And a little gasket keeps the water from flipping out. And then all of a sudden, you push this little trigger here. And water comes out. It's kind of nice. So it makes it so you don't have to squeeze a little squirt bottle. So let me wipe this down. Now, the next step is very important. I know it's about 27 minutes in here, but the next thing that's really important when you're doing this is that you don't contaminate the next finer stones with this rougher powder. This 120 to 320 surfacing compound, if you put it on a 1500 grit stone, it's going to start really roughing this stone up beyond what we're looking to do. So what I'm going to do is try to clean this off. I normally go to a sink and kind of wipe it out, but for now, I'll just use this here water to kind of clean it off. It's going to be a little precarious walking to the bathroom to try to dump that out. Let's get one more. I feel pretty good about that. I don't feel any grit. And the thing is, you don't want that grit on there, or, it's probably on my hands. That's probably, great job, David. Great job. Good job, Dr. Cyzak. So let me wipe some of that off so I don't put that right back on there. If only I had been wearing gloves. Okay, so we'll clean up a little bit over here. Clean up the old pencil here because it's kind of gross. There we go, nice and clean. Well, relatively clean. Okay, let's switch to the 1500 grit compound. I'm going to move a little faster because I don't want to take up your whole afternoon, evening, or good night. I want to get work done. I'm going to make another video here shortly and use these stones to sharpen a couple more knives. So we'll put this right back to work. So I have the compound on for the medium. I'm going to put a little water on here. I'm running low on water. We'll make it last. I only got a little bit. Okay. This stone, quite smooth. Quite smooth. Oh, I almost forgot. So I think instead of doing this twice, this time I'll just do it once because we'll get into the expedited motion here. Oh, you can even hear. I'm going to put a little bit more on there. Now, this is interesting. You can see it's kind of like a light scratching. It isn't even scratching down past the slurry that's on there. So it is very fine. So I'm going to put a little bit more to make sure it does what it's supposed to do. that cut pretty quick. I see a lot taken off here, and I see the X's in here and some X's down here. I just had a student, and they showed this exact pattern to me, and they said, why are there patterns here and here? If you're a right-handed knife sharpener, oftentimes what you'll do is when you're drawing down and you're finishing, you'll draw across and deep. And what that does is it starts to wear down the stone here. Then when you flip the stone to try to keep it even, if you're right-handed, you're going to be drawing down and really finishing and focusing in right here. And sure enough, this is where our X's are from the pencil. So it's a kind of a cool thing to see that our wear pattern is clearly evident in when we're flattening the stone. It's kind of comforting to know what you're doing is revealed in the wear pattern of the stone and how you're flattening it, and show why we're flattening. Oh, it's very kind of meditative almost. That feels really smooth. The stone has gotten a little rougher than it was, but again, I think that's because the stone is, the Shapton surfacing compound is kind of roughing up the surface, and as we sharpen our knives on it, it kind of smooths out the surface, even though it's dishing it. I think that's great. I'm just going to keep going to the other side. The funny thing is, what's really neat, when you feel the side that you've just flattened, even though it has, grit on it, let's get a little bit off, it feels surprisingly flat. Like, obviously it's supposed to be flat, but it feels so much more true than on the other side. It's just a sensation you can get. You can see the reflection in both sides, but when you take the stone and flatten it, it feels special. It's kind of interesting. I can't remember if I put any lines on this one. I don't think I did. Let me put some on there just in case. I kind of forgot. And you can see this is some serious stones, because the tip of the pencil is getting worn down here. Oh my. That was pretty good. And again, the stone it's not just clean. You can feel that very satisfying finish on it. Great. Ooh, oh my. Oh boy. Let me get a paper towel here and try to clean off my hands a little bit. So I'm going to switch over. I'm going to pause the video here because I'm going to go to the next grit up, but my battery's about to die. So I'm going to pause it here, plug in my phone, and then you're going to see the video hopefully uncut. So I'll be right back. And we're back. We're shifted over about 3 inches so that the power cord that is plugged in over here can loop its way back around here and come in on this side over here. So we're still here. We're still back. They can't slow us down. They can't take us away. So we did our 1500 grit. It was a great success. But my next stone I have is not 2000. My next stone is a 5000. And so I need to switch over to, or I'm going to switch over to the fine compound. If you only have so many different kinds of compound, I guess you use what you need to. But I like that they provide those descriptions from the Shapton company, so I think that I'm going to go with it. So just going to clean up that stone a little bit so when I put it away, it doesn't have anything extra on it. So we finished the 120 and the 320 with the coarse compound. I'll put those over on my toolbox here. Put those away. And now we're going to switch over to the two highest stones I have. With a double hollow ground, I really only go up to a 5,000. But with a single beveled knife, I think 8,000, 15, 30, it can be an advantage if you're using those stones. If you're using that kind of knife, it can be helpful to have that level of fineness, potentially, if you like it. It's getting a little sputtery. Thankfully, this is the last batch. And these are the ones where I want to be really pretty cautious to make sure I can get all that extra coarseness out of here. I'm going to wipe off my hands again. Show, don't tell. I'm going to just give it a feel test to see. Yeah, I don't feel any. Oop, I don't feel really any grit. There's probably some push down inside there, but I think it'll be fine. This isn't a lab environment or something like that. It's going to be okay. We're going to switch to the white fine, and if they're not labeled when you buy them, I'm going to give you a comparison so you can kind of see. So here's fine, medium, and coarse. And if we look at the clear side, you can see the kind of deeper, rich sparkle on this one, where this one looks, the sparkles almost look duller, but I think it's only because they're so much smaller, where this one almost looks like charcoal particulate or something like that. And this one just looks like baby powder or something like that, of talcum powder. It's white. So again, so you can compare them. There's your coarse, medium, and fine. So we're going to switch over to the fine. Load up our stone here. Oh, and I might as well do the same thing I did before, where I tested it on my finger to give you a feel. Whoa! That is wild. Huh. I did not expect that. It's not like chalk, because chalk falls off your hand, but when I wipe it in my hand, it almost is like it's so fine that it's like finer than powder. Like baby powder or something like that just kind of would fall off your hand. But you can see as I kind of rub it around, it just kind of embeds into my fingers. It's like powderier than powder. Really interesting. I didn't expect that. So it is really fine. That is amazing. All right, that's cool. Now, I'm not going to kid around here. I'm going to load this thing up because I want this to go really well. I want these stones to be great. All right, let's do our cross hatching here. That was a little artsier than the other one. It's a little more abstract looking. I probably should sharpen that pencil because it could use it. Now let's see how gritty this sounds. Ooh. It almost sounds delicate, like powder. It's got a spacey sound. You can even, like, the pitch is higher. It's got this kind of, like a harmonic somewhere up on top of it. Let's see what the pencil's doing. Well, that's interesting. Oh, you couldn't see that. Sorry, that's interesting. The pencil is still very much present right there. The white is starting to come down into there, but there are pencil marks still right in here. So this side of the stone was really used, and sure enough, this side of the stone as well. Interesting. I I have my theory on that. When sharpening, I wonder if when the fine stones, I'm trying to go up higher and push into them, and so I'm dragging the knife down, digging into the stone here, and doing the same thing as I'm trying to push up to the tip. Very interesting. Well, let's keep going and make sure we can get rid of that. So rather than just going flat, I'm going to go, I'm pressing down, but I'm pressing a little bit on the left. So it's flat, it's not lifting up, but I'm putting more pressure on the left side. So flat is relative. Just because it's flat doesn't mean it's going to be evenly receiving pressure. So by putting more pressure on the right side here, more is going to come off on the stone on the right side. Same thing on the left side. More is going to come off on the left side. Now I'm going to go back and try to even both of them out and meet them in the middle. I'm taking it, and you can see this poor stone got a chip in it. Oh, sad days. But very smooth, very nice. I mean, it feels flat. I'm just gonna go with it. I think this is good. We took the pencil marks off. It feels flat. It looks flat. It's very. You can even see. Look how nice and clean it looks. Very, very nice. Let's go to the other side. I'm just playing around with you. Oh, that's a very aggressive sound. There's a little ding in the stone. That's interesting. Right here, it has like a, that's not just a mark. That's not from the pencil. Let's see if I can help you see that. Right here. Yeah, you can see in the reflection, right above my thumbnail, you can see that kind of dip. A little gouge in there. This stone is so, oh, Jiminy Cricket. Delete that part. The stone is so soft that kind of similar to a strop. If you're going on this stone and you cut down too hard, you can cut into the stone. I mean, ceramic, but it's a little bit more fragile than the rougher stones. And if you have a strop, for example, and instead of brushing your knife against it, if you cut into the strop, the same thing will happen. The strop will have a dig into it. Excuse me. Pardon. Oh, sorry. There we go. Okay. Good. So let's go back to this one and just do a little bit more. Try not to drop it. Okay. I'm not worried about getting that nick out of there. It'd take quite a while to get that out. So I'm just going to kind of leave it there and just make note of it mentally and keep an eye on it. And the nice thing is we can use this same grit for the next stone up to 8,000. We may not want to. I guess you could make the argument if you're using a 5,000 grit stone and you're using this lapping powder, when the stone is being broken down and mixed with the lapping powder, you could make the argument that the 5,000 grit stone material that's breaking down would be rougher on the 8,000 grit stone and would impact the way that it looks. Oh boy, a little messy over here. But for now, maybe that's a video for another day. If you want to see that video, then let me know. But otherwise, we'll just keep going with this. I think it'll be fine. So you can even feel, when I feel here, like even the edges are so clean, so precise. And you can even see the mirror finish on that stone. It's pretty cool. And this does put a mirror on the knife. It's pretty cool. Let's put that one away and we're almost done. Put this one over here. Okay. Pro Flow, or is it the Pro? The RL Flowmaster is making a little sound. I think I got some goop on the camera there. Ruh-roh. Let me try to wipe you off here so you don't have a black eye or anything. Excuse me. Pardon me. Beautiful. Perfect. For good measure. Okay. Finish this one up. Here we go. Now, this is funny because this black mark here is actually Sharpie. We put Sharpie on I have my students and I put Sharpie on my knife sometimes to see what's coming off. And the Sharpie went on here and just kind of stained the stone, which is kind of funny. But I'm just going to get a little wet here. I'll do the same lattice work thing, the little lines. I'm going to release the pressure on this thing. It's making this goofy sound. There we go. A nice hiss. Okay. Now, even though the grit is still the same, it sounds smoother to me. It sounds softer. I still hear that high whining pitch, but it has a chalkier feel to it. There's a little bit of pencil over here. Oh, you can't really see that. Let me help you out. The funny thing is it has... Oh, I released the pressure, so I'm going to build up that pressure again. There we go. What I don't like is all these deep cuts in the stone. There's a little bit of pencil over here. Oh, and I can feel that. It's not so good. I'm going to put a little more compound on here. I suspect there's probably some scratching it up. I'm going to put a little more gusto into this one to see if we can't wear down some of that stone. Before I said, don't move too fast because you'll wash on the top, but now I'm moving fast and heavy. And it's kind of funny because now there's these little micro bubbles forming in here. I wonder if the smaller grit molecularly is reacting to the oxygen being trapped in the bubbles and forming smaller bubbles. You can write a paper about that. I'm not going to write a paper about that. Hey, it's working. No, that's not working, but don't fail me now, Flowmaster. Come on. Okay. Whoa, there we go. Flowmaster for the win. Now, it is better. Those dark lines are starting to recede, and I think I'm starting to wash them out. So I'm happy about that. I don't know if it's worth continuing to dig down into the stone, considering we got the pencil marks to go away. Here's another nick here. And again, these stones, they're brittle. And so if you press the wrong way, you're going to nick into them. So I think that's fine for now. I'm not too worried about that. But it's something to be cognizant of. Especially considering you can feel it. If you were really wondering about it, it would be worthwhile to potentially take the microscope, place it on that area, and then zoom in and see if it really is a gradation and how it looks. I can feel it's a gradation, but the microscope gives us that second sight, which is very important. Sometimes it allows you to then see something, and when you're looking at it, you can imagine what the microscope would see, even if you don't have the microscope. It's kind of like you're training your eye to see something, so you can see the signals for what otherwise would only be seen in a microscopic level. We're around in third base, coming to home with this one. We're almost there. Come on, Flowmaster. Oh, jeez. You can do it. There's probably like an eighth of a cup of water left in there. I mean, this is okay. We got the Sharpie off. The pencil lines are gone. And it feels flat. Like I said, I don't like these little nicks right here. I don't like that. And there's these long lateral lines in the stone. But I think it'll be okay for now. Well, we did it. We successfully took a lapping plate, used Shapton surfacing compounds on that lapping plate, and then flattened our stones. We used pencil to mark the stones to see, are we actually flattening the entirety of the stone? These stones didn't seem, when we were using them, like they were too unlevel, but when we were sharpening on them earlier, and I've been sharpening on them for a while, they get out of whack a little bit. It's super important. If you have Shapton stones, Shapton ceramic stones, you really, really need a lapping plate like this. They're not cheap. They're over $100. And if you're not interested in using them on coarse stones, they do make diamond lapping plates that don't require any grit. Those are even more expensive, but they don't require the same type of compound, surfacing compound grit. You just place them on there, and the diamond is already placed inside the material. So all I have left to do is clean this mess up, and so I'll dump it in the old sink. I'll probably try to get the material that's on the bottom and wipe it up so it doesn't go down the drain. But other than that, I'm gonna clean this, dry it, and of course, the next time you see a video with this, it will not look like this fresh iron. This thing's heavy. It's not gonna look that, it's gonna rust up again. I've put paper towel on there, I've oiled it, which I don't want you to oil it, I don't know. But it's just the natural part of oxidizing the steel, and you don't want to put oil on your stone. That's not what this is about. So be cautious. These stones, at least, you know, there's always something. There's always a rule for something, but for now, just don't put oil on these ones. But other than that, thank you for joining in as we worked on some stones together and flattened them all out. I'll have to do it again eventually. But I hope you have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or night. And I hope you subscribe and check out new videos. If you want to leave a comment to have an idea for a new video or ask me why I do something or why now I have pruny hands. They've been in the water for a while. But go ahead and ask. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. And happy reed making, happy sharp knives. See you later.